everybody, welcome to Lazio Lounge. Finally, Lazio won. We needed to celebrate. How are you, Braveheart of Lazio, Alistair McKenzie?
I'm good. I thoroughly enjoyed that introduction, especially as you didn't warn me what it was going to be. So I think you needed to turn it up a bit louder, though.
It wasn't too loud. Well, I'm going to fix it. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, absolutely wonderful. You know, I've always said, and I dare anybody to contradict me here, that the Supercoppa is the most important trophy there is in Italian football.
Absolutely.
I could not be happier right now.
Absolutely. The most important trophy of the season, I would say. No doubt about it.
Jokes aside, I think that this result, for so many reasons, which we'll get into, no matter what importance you place on the Supercoppa, the result and the performance and the history against Juventus does actually make this, a very significant result, and one that gives us cause for a lot of optimism. You know, I mean, I had a lot of people doubting my prediction of us winning in extra time. We didn't even need extra time.
We were very close, unfortunately.
You got the amount of Juventus goals at least, right?
Unbelievable. But yeah, we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah, sure. And we've got this plan tonight where basically we're going to try and respond to questions as they come in, because we're recording this straight after the game. So we'll try and get through people's questions. But before that, let's just have our own conversation about the game, Vittorio. So where to start? Where do you want to start?
Well, if we knew that, selling Biglia means win finals, then we should have sold him 3 years ago. Now I'm a little bit disappointed. Maybe we should sold him before.
Well, I'm not sure if the absence of Lucas Biglia was the one reason. But I mean, interesting, just before we came on, we were mentioning the conversation between Lotito and De Vrij at the end there, and one of the comments we had from who was it? Torsten Gustafsson was saying that he's probably been telling him that why does he need to go to Juventus when he can be doing that over here. So quite right. I mean, you wonder if results like that maybe makes someone. I think it's too late for Keita. I'm sure we'll get onto that later, but for someone like De Vrij, if a result like that will maybe give this team more belief going forward, because for me, not only the first half performance, obviously everyone got tired towards the end, and it was very disappointing to concede the 2 goals, especially because they were both avoidable, set pieces. But I think that was a sign of the tiredness, because they played such a high intensity kind of pressing game. But the way that, if you concede 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of a match, it's not very often you see the team who's conceded those goals come back immediately and responding with a goal of their own. That was incredible. I thought that was a real testament to the character of this team and what the kind of never say die attitude that Inzaghi seemed to instill in them.
I totally agree. And as we started talking about De Vrij, I think probably today was his best performance ever with Lazio. I mean, was Higuain playing? I didn't see him at all. And, De Vrij was perfect, really perfect. And even in the first half, he made a perfect tackle in the box. So, again, really great performance for De Vrij. And I don't know if he thought, well, maybe I can win even with Lazio, so I will stay. But for sure, he played really well. And he gave you the impression that he really cared, which wasn't what you was seeing from Keita. So I was really impressed, honestly. We always talk about, especially I always talk about De Vrij, saying that he's a leader, but often make mistakes when he's marking a striker. Well, today he was absolutely fantastic. And Wallace as well played terrific today.
Yeah.
I think Wallace suffer of amnesia sometimes, because he forgets where he is and do stupid mistakes. But today he was perfect, and a couple of times he was very good to recover I think one's Cuadrado, the other one Douglas Costa, that are very fast, but he didn't struggle there and made good tackles. So all the defense played really well. And again, Strakosha. What would happen to the final today if Strakosha didn't make those two great saves at the beginning? Probably Juventus would have won it again easily.
Yeah, I mean, the opening 5 minutes was a bit, inauspicious. You kind of watch that and think, oh God, here we go again. It's another game against Juventus. But Strakosha was brilliant. It's interesting you say that about De Vrij being the best performance he's had for Lazio, because I was thinking the same thing but about Wallace. Like you mentioned how good he was tonight. I thought he was really, really good tonight. He read the game very well. He was intercepting balls as well as making good tackles. He was passing the ball intelligently. He wasn't, like you say, he's capable of making these errors. And a lot of the time, like in the derby last December, they seem to come while he's on the ball and he's a bit indecisive. But this evening I thought he was making the right decisions. He seemed calm and, yeah, he's really put his hand up to be a very important player for this team this season. And Radu as well, it's worth mentioning, all week there's been this, toss-up between Radu and Hoot, who's going to start this match. And Radu, obviously very experienced player, but not so experienced at Lazio, at least, playing in a back three. So to see him come into that position and do so well, I thought it was a very all-round, a very good defensive performance. And the defence can't necessarily be blamed too much for the goals, given that they were the results of, like I said before, kind of giving away set pieces more than the actual defensive structure being torn apart. It's a shame. I feel bad, especially for Maricic. I don't know about you. I think it was good to see him come off the bench. Obviously, the two wing-backs, Basta and Lulic, have been working very hard up to that point. So it's a shame because we know how good he's been in pre-season and how promising he looks. So I hope he doesn't get too downhearted by that, giving away the penalty. I think because we've gone on to win the game, it won't weigh on him so much. But I hope he's got a strong character and he can look past it, because everyone makes mistakes, and in the end it wasn't a costly one, although it could have been.
No, I totally agree. I wished he would start the match because I think he can be a very important player for this team. The penalty.
But Basta was good though tonight, you don't think?
Yes, but Basta is clever, is smart, but doesn't have the potential of Marusic. The power, the speed is something that Basta doesn't have. So he's important because he helps the team keep the position, etc. But I think Marusic is a quality player that can make the difference. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, who didn't play well today? I thought Milinkovic-Savic wasn't great, but at the same time, he played well. So, I mean, everybody played really, really well today.
Well, I thought Milinkovic-Savic had a very poor opening to the game. Very poor kind of opening 5-10 minutes. But he was, in spells tonight, he was absolutely superb. I mean, obviously he set up the Immobile chance where he won the penalty, but he was creative. He was winning the ball. I thought in a lot of the middle part of the game, particularly, say between the 15th, 60th kind of minute, he was looking very good there. We actually got a comment here from Pablo who said, "Can't we just bench Milinkovic until the end of the transfer window so nobody can see how good he is?" I think everyone kind of already knows. I'm sorry, Pablo, but I do think I was introducing him to someone I was watching the game with earlier and saying that this is a guy with a big future and he's got everything. So we really hope that nobody notices for a bit longer.
But again, the agent of Milinkovic said he's not moving this summer. So at least this season he's staying with Lazio. Next one, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so it's completely different from a Keita agent, etc. So we know that he's staying. And I mean, honestly, I always wanted to see Luis Alberto play near Lucas Leiva. We had the chance today, and we saw the result. I think it was very, very good. I don't know if you agree. I mean, they match together very well. They can play together very well.
Well, I'll tie this into a question we've had actually as well. But obviously, at quite short notice, Inzaghi's had to change his formation and change his team, because the 3-5-2 we saw in pre-season with Anderson just off the shoulder of Immobile, that changed tonight, and it's a kind of 3-4-2-1. A lot of the time it looked more like 3-4-3, to be honest. This Milinkovic, Savic and Luis Alberto pushing quite high up. And for him to be able to organise the team well enough to get that result against Juventus is very impressive from Inzaghi's perspective. The question I referred to is that Kilkito asked us, this actually came in at half-time, I think, when obviously we were winning at that stage. So he said, we haven't dominated Juve like this, like the last 30 minutes of the first half in a long, long time. So what was the key? The formation, Lucas, or just Juve being poor? Now, one thing I said at the end of this game to my brother was that I really hope this result doesn't get painted in the press as Juventus being bad and nothing else. I get the feeling it probably will be, but Lazio made Juventus look bad tonight. Let's get that straight first of all, because the way they pressed, I think, first of all, Juventus really enjoy being on the ball, and Lazio didn't really give them much time or space in the midfield. The reason we tired so much at the end was obviously how much pressure they were putting on the midfield, and a lot of that work was being done by the wing-backs, which is why they were both removed in the second half. But I think Inzaghi outsmarted Allegri tonight. I don't know about you. I think in terms of talking about the key, I think it came down to the coaches, and I think Inzaghi knew how to nullify Juventus' danger and make the most out of his players tonight. I don't know if you agree, but for me that seemed to be the key kind of component.
I agree, and we have to say that still Juventus players are better than Lazio's one. So if Lazio have to win, everybody has to play well, but even the tactics has to be the right one. And I think that pressing high, like Lazio did after the first 10-15 minutes, was part of the key, but especially I think Lucas Leiva was amazing, because he recovers so many balls and very high that allowed Lazio immediately to go on the counter-attack. And I think that's something that it's going to be very important this year. And it looks like Leiva in that point is much better than Biglia. So this could be a very important advantage for Lazio. And if Inzaghi continue to make Luis Alberto play in that position, then, I mean, Lazio can have a very skilled midfield, but with still a lot of good pace and defense quality. I mean, till Lucas Leiva had the power to run, Lazio defend were never struggling. Then you can see when Lucas Leiva couldn't run anymore, then Lazio start struggling and having problems. So I think this tells you how much Lucas Leiva is important for this team. And I don't think Juventus played that bad. I think Lazio made Juventus play that bad. Allegri, for me, still didn't figure out how to replace Bonucci, not when defending, but when attacking. And again, for me, Pjanic showed again that in the big matches, he always disappeared. He should have been the playmaker. He didn't do nothing, pretty much nothing. And he should have said away for two bad falls that the referee didn't see. So I think big part is because Lazio played very well and attacked very high.
Yeah, and it's a really... one thing I said in last week's show when we were talking about what we'd like to see for this game was that I hoped Lazio would attack the game, and be positive. And I was so happy that they did go that way, and they didn't make the mistake that they have in the past of actually just, doing nothing more than sitting in and trying to nullify Juventus. And obviously they did sit in, especially to begin with, and they were camped out a bit deep. But when they countered, they had real numbers, committed to those attacks. And especially, as I mentioned before, the wing-backs were crucial to that. And we saw that at the end as well. I mean, the way that Jordan Lukaku, we've talked about him throughout the summer. Unfortunately, he's been injured for most of the summer, so we haven't seen a lot of him in pre-season. But he was my tip for the breakout star of the season, and I hope we see more of him in that left back role, because he's such a weapon as an attacking force. And at that point in the game, he was exactly what we needed. And not only did he manage to beat his man and cut inside, but he managed to actually pick out Murgia. And a lot of credit to Inzaghi has to go for the fact that the two of the three substitutes combined to set up and score the goal. I suppose you could then say, well, yeah, the third substitute gave away the penalty, but let's ignore that for the time being. But yeah, very very encouraging. We've just had another question coming through here. We asked people to kind of send us questions as we do this, and Cal Thompson's just come in just saying, what just happened?
Nothing.
So we're trying to explain that.
Talking about Lukaku, we said it pretty much all summer. We both believe that he can be a game changer. His speed, his strength, he can overpower the marking man, and you saw it today. He was amazing. I don't know who was the guy who was marking him. At the end, tried even to tackle him, to fall him, but he was so strong that couldn't handle Lukaku. And I think really he can be a top player. Let's not forget that he's not fit. That's why he didn't play today. He entered later because he wasn't able to play all the match. But he can change. With his power, he can change the match. So
that'll be interesting to see when he is fully fit, though, what happens at that point. Because if he keeps playing that way, then you kind of have to put him in the team. But then, Lulic is a leader in this team. He's a captain, obviously. But for me, he's not the strongest player in that position. This is what goes back to conversation we had about the captaincy earlier this summer. But what happens to Lulic then? Do you push Lulic inside into the midfield?
No, I don't think so. But
does he sit on the bench?
Think about today. It was the first match of the season, and Lazio already had like 2-3 players out. So you cannot hope, and you know that it won't happen that Lazio will be able to play with a starting 11, the so-called starting 11, a lot of matches. It will happen often that someone will be fit, etc. And so I think that Lulic will find his place. One thing very important, and you saw it today clearly, is that one of the talent of Lazio, and maybe one of the talent of Simone Inzaghi, is that there are a lot of players that can play in different positions. Think about Luis Alberto. He was, a winger. He played center midfielder, then was a trequartista, was playing a striker with Immobile. Milinkovic-Savic the same. Lulic, Lukaku, etc. This gives the ability to the team, to Inzaghi, to change team during the match without making subs, and that's, I think, a very important thing for a team. And it's going to be very important because the opposite team will have to change tactics during the match, and that's not very easy.
Yeah, we've actually got a question about Luis Alberto. Well, you mentioned him here from Philip Reidelberg. Who's asking if Alberto could be this season's SMS, i.e. having a subpar first season and in the second season he flourishes. It certainly seems like at least he's going to be given more opportunities in his second season, and now that he's shown his diversity to Inzaghi, I think we're going to see a lot more of him this season than we did last. I mean, I think when he came in, we more or less saw him as a kind of inside forward / winger. And once Inzaghi chose to, shift his formation to 3-5-2, then there wasn't that much space for a player who plays in those roles. So Inzaghi's done very well to actually be able to look at the qualities he has and find a role for him in this team. And he had an important contribution last season at times. He did score some, that goal against Genoa towards the end of the season. He scored some important goals, but I hope and expect he'll play an important contribution. In terms of whether he'll have the same kind of impact as Milinkovic-Savic, I still find that quite unlikely, because I don't think he's the same level of player, really, to be honest.
He played really well, though, today, and that's a fact. And no one can say that he hasn't got talent. The thing that impressed me a lot, and I don't know if you notice, is that he recovered a lot of balls today, a lot of good tackles and things like that. If you think again of Keita, you never see him doing things like that. While Luis Alberto, defend very well, and that's important because you see that he wants to win with his club. He wants to show that he has everything, and I think today he did a very good match. And honestly, talking about the next match, the first day of Serie A, I don't think I would prefer to see him playing at this point, as he seeing him playing this summer so well. I think he deserves to have more chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, we've got one more question coming in here, which has just kind of gone back to the previous thing we were talking about, but I missed it at first, so I think we should probably go back to it. Which is about Lukaku, just saying, should he start more games because he gives us more attacking threat out wide compared to Lulic? Came from DC. So I think what I've said before about this is that I expect that he will get more games, especially in the gate against opposition who are perhaps further down the league. But it depends. I don't know. It depends how an attacking approach Inzaghi is going to take for the rest of the season, because he's certainly a big threat, but then it does leave spaces behind if he is going forward. But if he is keeping Lucas in that position in this heart of midfield, which I expect he will for most of the season, then I don't see why you can't have more attacking wing backs. Because, for example, if you have a back three like you do today with Stefan Radu on the left-hand side, it means that when Lukaku does go forward, Radu can shift out to the left to cover that space and Lucas can drop in, and then you're pretty much covered with the back four. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot still to come, obviously, this season. So Lukaku didn't end last season as a regular in the team, so I wouldn't expect him to just walk into the team at the start of this season, especially ahead of someone as senior as Lulic, who's just got the captaincy. I think it will take time for these changes to be made. The same way, to be honest, Vittorio, I think that it'll take a while for Basta to be moved out of the team for important games in place of Marisic. I think I like Marisic, but I think it's going to take some time for him to actually be the first choice ahead of Basta.
I think it's going to be a sort of rotation with the Europe League coming in. There are going to be so many matches that they're all going to play, but someone is going to play on Thursday, the other one on the weekend, and things like that. One thing important about Lukaku, he didn't play a lot last year, but when Inzaghi switched to the 3-5-2, then he had find more space, and probably he would have finished the season in the starting 11 if he didn't get injured. So, and you saw the improvement even when he was defending. Of course, I don't think Lukaku is going to be like Barzagli, but he's going to be more dangerous than Barzagli when attacking. So I think it's a risk that Inzaghi is willing to take. And then again, I'm not saying that Lukaku, Marusic are going to play every match. There are going to be matches where they're not going to play because Inzaghi prefer different options, or maybe because they're tired and things like that. The season is very, very long. So it's good to have these players available. I mean, one of the most important things of tonight that people must not forget is that tonight on the bench we had Felipe Anderson that was injured, Caseido, Palombi, and that's it. No other strikers. So that's where Lazio need to improve. And this victory doesn't have to make people think, Lazio squad is perfect. No, let's not forget about that, because Immobile was dead at the end of the match, and we didn't have anybody to bring in his place.
Yeah, that I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something I was wanting to talk about as well. Is that it's annoying to kind of bring this up when it's been a really positive result, obviously, and we've just won a trophy and the rest of it. But one thing we did see from this game so clearly was how much it took out of that team to win this game, and I don't think you can expect it to be any different in any big games this season. You know, if we're going to try and implement this style in the first 5 weeks, we're going to be playing Milan and Napoli, for example. You're going to have to play a similar style to get results against them. I think the depth of the squad is still a big concern. If you look at the fact that we've conceded 2 goals in the last 5 minutes, and just from, like you say, looking at guys like Ciro Immobile towards the end of the match who are just exhausted, we're playing in 3 competitions this season. This is a lot of fixtures we've got coming up, and Inzaghi knows how to win matches and knew that was the right way to win the match tonight. But you can't expect, with a squad of this size, that we're going to be able to play at that intensity every week, not even every week, every 3 days. It's still not enough.
Well, the thing is, don't forget that Lucas Leiva arrived late. Parolo was recovering from injury. Radu start training again like Wednesday, and it's still August, so not everybody is fit. But yes, it's important to have a big squad. And honestly, I think, especially if De Vrij doesn't leave, that defenders are quite right. We have the good number. Again, Murcia impressed me again today. And so I think, if Murcia continues to play like this, then even at midfield, we are pretty much set and with good depth. What concerned me a lot is in front. I hope, and I said it a lot of time, that Palombi comes in and proves to be a player worthy to play with Lazio. But he's young and he will need to improve and to grow. And we don't have anyone else except Casado at the moment there. So that's the thing that concerns me more.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I've got another question to bring in now. Thanks to everyone who has chipped in with this new format of questions. We've got one, where to start? We've got one from Torsten Gustafsson saying, does anyone really miss Bilia? After what I saw from Leiva, he's better for sure. I suppose, Vittorio, what kind of difference do you see in their roles? I think Leiva has more or less brought what I expected him to bring from tonight's performance. I still think he's not. He doesn't provide the kind of playmaker role in any way. He is available for passes, but he's not the one that everyone goes to kind of dictate the way that Lazio play. And like we've said after I think the Malaga game, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because Lazio could be a bit predictable before that it would go to Bilia and he would work out what to do next. But Leiva tonight, his experience showed. I mean, he got booked for the most cynical tackle I think I've ever seen. But and if it went the other way, you'd be very unhappy about it. But at the same time, it is, whether you like it or not, it does show his experience, because he knew that tackle needed to be made. He knew he would get a yellow card, and that's the end of it. So, but it's good to have people who are smart and in the middle of the pitch, have that experience, can manage the game. And with guys like Luis Alberto and Milinkovic and Parolo all around him tonight, you knew there was enough creativity and you knew there was enough driving force going forward to actually that him being in that game wasn't going to have a negative effect on the creativity or so on. The concern I had beforehand was, say we were playing 4-3-3 and you replace Biglia with Leva, then you're going to miss out big time on the more kind of technical side of his game. But in this system, I don't think it's going to be such an issue. And actually, I think Leva's going to fit in that system quite well. Like I mentioned before, in terms of his defensive responsibilities and the way he can allow the wing-backs to attack more.
Think about the penalty. What happened? Lucas Leiva tackle around midfield. Then what was it? Milinkovic-Savic to Immobile or Luis Alberto to Immobile?
Milinkovic-Savic.
Penalty. That's what Lazio needed. And I think one of the secrets why Lazio played so well in the first half was because Lazio was pressing very high and Lucas Leiva were recovering a lot of balls in Juventus midfield. That's something that Biglia were never able to do. And again, I'm not sure that he's not a playmaker. If you look the match again, you will notice that, especially in the first half, there were one or two Juventus players marking Lucas Leiva during the match just to not allow him to get the ball. So I was really impressed because I didn't think he had enough matches to be that fit, but he played really well. And I think one of the secrets of the match, why the Lazio won today, was Lucas Leiva. And you said it, he has a ton of experience. He played more international match, much more international match than Lucas Biglia. And this is something that you see in finals. You see a player with experience and a player who hasn't got experience. And I thought today was evident, the difference between the two. I'm not saying Biglia is not a good player, but I think probably for Lazio, especially for this type of Lazio, Lucas Leiva can be more useful.
Yeah, I think it's a very smart signing. You know, it's one that I can imagine as looking back on next summer and thinking, you know, fair play, Tare. Sometimes you get it right. That was a good piece of business. And yeah, it does. It's. I've said from the start, I don't see it as a direct replacement. I don't think it's fair to compare the two players and say it's one in, one out, and they're doing the same role. But it does go to show that this kind of squad is Inzaghi's kind of performing an evolution of this squad, and he's brought in Leiva, who has a certain role he can play within that. But he's also got guys, not only Alberto Milinkovic-Savic, but Murgia, who I believe you're a fan of, Vittorio. I think he's going to have a much bigger role to play this season.
Now, tell me this.
And Inzaghi trusts him. You know, it's bringing him on today wasn't just him saying, right, my midfield's knackered, I need to get fresh legs on. Bringing him on today is saying, look, this is a big game. You're a guy who's played enough games for us now. I know what you can bring to the squad, so you can go on there and do it. And it wasn't a coincidence he was in the box in the 94th minute, tapping in from 6 yards. You know, he's making those runs because he's clever. He can make those runs. He knows the position to be in, and he can score goals. So he's someone to really keep an eye on this season.
And tell me how many managers. You're playing the Supercoppa Italia final. The other team just scored and you were winning 2-0 and it's 5 minutes. Your team is knackered and you bring a guy of 20 years old in when you have an experienced midfielder around 30 years old in the bench. I mean, how many would make Murgia enter and not Di Gennaro? I don't think that many. And that's one of the quality of Simone Inzaghi. He's not scared about age. And the players know. So Murgia came in knowing that he has the confidence, he had the trust of the manager, and he showed it. Honestly, I think that Murgia is a really talented player, and it's incredible for me that no newspaper talk about Murgia at all. They talk about the Scio, that today was awful again. They talk about a lot of other Italian players, and not about Murgia. This guy, in the first year of playing in professional football, scored 2 goals. And nearly every match he played well. Now he comes in the Supercoppa Italia final. 1 minute and he scores. He's terrific. I think really he can be a top player. But again, we have to talk about Simone Inzaghi. The trust, the confidence, the courage as well of putting in these young players, and they play for him because they know that he trusts them. And this is just the example. I mean, I'm so happy about Murgia. I was telling before, everybody, tomorrow, buy the shirt of Lazio with Murgia. He deserves it.
Although I remember, was it last year or the year before, I came very close to buying a Cataldi shirt, so be careful. I'm glad you mentioned Zag. We got another question here. Cal Thompson getting in touch saying how can we realistically hold on to Inzaghi for much longer? We've had questions like this before. I suppose the thing is, with any football club, the more success you have, the more attention your manager gets. The difference we have here is that Inzaghi's a guy who hasn't left Lazio for, over 20 years or something? It's around that. He's been a player at the club, been a coach at the club, done miracles with the youth team. And I think that is probably more dependent on his relationship with, dare I say it, with Lotito and Tare and how they manage things than on anything else. I think there's no question over his ability, and if he has another brilliant season and proves that it wasn't a one-off last season, a success, quite rightly there'll be big teams having a look at him. So at that stage, it's more about whether he thinks he can build something really special in Lazio, a club he cares about, or if he gets tired of being messed around and transfer dealings and losing players, not speaking about anyone in particular here, and that forces him out. And I really, really hope it doesn't come to that. But for me, that is probably going to play a part in how well he does if he continues to succeed. But it all depends on this season. I don't. By the way, I don't think we have a chance of losing him during this season. I think we've at least got another season with him here. But like I say, if we manage to get in the Champions League or something along those lines this year, then there probably will be other teams coming to have a look.
I think there are a couple of things to say about Inzaghi. One, he's a real Lazio fan, and this is a little bit new thinking about the other manager Lazio had. So he's a fan as well. So I don't think he would leave Lazio if nothing big happens. Second, he feels a lot that this is his team, especially because of the youngster that are there, that he already managed, trained when he was with the youngsters team, etc. So, Murgia, Greco, Strakosha, they are all his players, let's call it like that. So I think he really feels this as his team. And I feel that he wants to build a team that can improve. So I think that would be his goal. Obviously, he hopes that Tare and Lotito were able to provide him the player he needs. But I think that his goal will be to win with Lazio. Then, if he wins the Scudetto, then probably he could leave. But I think it's not the moment now. So I'm quite confident that he will stay for a couple of years. Then we have to see, maybe Lazio start losing 10 matches in a row and he get fired. But we have to see. I don't think it's going to be that.
I really hope he's done enough here to be given patience. I think it's time and time again you can see the evidence of managers who are given more time over the long haul get more success, and I really don't want to see Inzaghi come under pressure from whether it's from the fans or whether it's from the board if he does go on a bad run, because when it comes down to it, like I say, I still don't think the squad's big enough for what he's up against this season. So if he does go on a bad run of form, I really hope it doesn't come to that. It seems like you say, he's building the squad in his own image, and he's brought through the youth players in more than any coach has done. I can't even remember the last time another coach has done so well in bringing through young Lazio players. The one thing is that, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, we're going to have to come on to this, so I might as well come on to it now because the next couple of questions I've come across are about this. So it's the K word, I'm afraid. We've got Cal Thompson saying, is a result like this going to convince Keita to sign on? No. Petar Andrejic has got in touch saying, your thoughts on Inzaghi and Tare's heated discussion on the pitch after the game. Inzaghi looked frustrated. Is it the Keita situation? Maybe. I didn't actually see this because, unfortunately, the coverage you get watching Sky Sports doesn't involve actually doing anything after the full-time whistle, so I missed any of that. But I imagine the Keita situation is not going to help anything to do with Inzaghi's relationship with the management, and that's why I brought that up as a concern in terms of his future. But I mean, bringing up the Keita topic, I suppose he was dropped from the squad. Inzaghi had said he was ready to play him for this game, and then talked about, you know, if his head's in the right place, and then he was dropped from the squad. So I think this has been badly dealt with across the board. I think Keita has dealt with it very badly. He shouldn't be going on Twitter to respond to this, like he shouldn't have been going on Twitter to respond to being left out of a match for a friendly game. And it's a friendly game, leave it alone. And the management at the same time shouldn't be allowing this situation to arise in the first place. It's just too messy, Vittorio. For the time now that the season has started, we shouldn't be having this happening. You know, it's
honestly the biggest fault of the team of Tare Lotito is that Keita is still here. They should have solved the problem. Apart from that, I think that the biggest part of the fault is Keita. His behavior is terrible. It looks like he said to Inzaghi that he wasn't feeling well to play, and then went on Twitter and said no, it wasn't true. But you know, I can understand Inzaghi that didn't call him, because especially against Juventus, you need a player that gives everything, like Luis Alberto, that went even back in defense and recovered the ball. Do you see Keita doing this against his former team? Or what happened at the penalty? Does Keita kicks the penalty against his former team? And what happened if he missed? You know, I mean, the mistake of Lotito and Tare is that they shouldn't drag the situation till now. The situation should be solved weeks ago. I know that Keita created a problem because he refused West Ham, etc., etc. But to drag the thing till today, I mean, that was the biggest problem. I like Murgia after the match because one of the journalists asked about Keita, and he replied saying that this is a big team, we're all working together, we're all giving everything. So I've got the impression that even the players are tired of him, doesn't like his behavior. But
well, they must be sick of it just being the only thing anyone's talking about with Lazio. You know, it's been a really positive pre-season for the guys who've been doing all the work on the pitch. They've won every game in pre-season. They've now won the Supercoppa, and still, whenever anyone mentions Lazio, it's about Keita, and they must be sick of that. Surely by now they know he's not wanting to be at the club. They know he's going to leave the club, and he's still there every day. So it's just not a healthy situation.
Yes, I agree. At the same time, it's even true that talking about Keita and not, I don't know, about Luis Alberto or how Lucas Leiva can replace Bigia, take out a little bit of concentration or a little bit of tense to the other players because they're talking only about Keita. But I agree, this should be solved let's hope that tonight there is going to be this announcement, etc. I'm not sure about it, but at least we solved the problem. The next question is, has Tide already got the number of the player they want to buy instead of Lucas of Keita?
Yeah, well, I think there were some comments from Tare that were printed recently about him saying that the Keita and De Vrij situations will be clarified. So I think we'll believe that when we see it. But I suppose you see there are certain kind of other situations going on in football that are very similar but just haven't been treated in the same way. And if you look at like Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal and Philippe Coutinho perhaps at Liverpool, there's two examples of guys who quite clearly want out of their clubs, but they haven't been on social media making a point about it. I don't know, I think Keita's behaviour has not been good, but yeah, but basically what it comes down to is that the management should have seen this coming. They should have had this cleared up before the transfer market, by the end of last season. I think it's good to have anyone who's out of contract the next summer and say, what's your position over your future? What's your position over a new deal? And get that deal done nice and early. And as you say, there's not long left in the market, is there? There's 2 weeks or so. So we need to act very quickly. And the chances of getting Keita out and getting someone as good as him in are pretty slim at this stage. And if you're going to try and buy someone of that talent with so little time left in the market, the chances are you're going to have to overspend. And how often do you see Lotito doing that?
Rarely.
So I'm not too optimistic.
No, and it's true that Lazio still have all the money of Biglia because Lucas Leiva costs just 5 million euros, so there's even that part that Lazio can spend. But as we said already before, it's important that this game don't hide the problem of this team. We still need a striker, a good striker. I'm curious to see Caicedo, but I still believe we need someone else. Luis Alberto played really well, and that's like a new signing for me. But we have to see where he's going to play. And with the Europe League, I think we need more players than the one we have now. I was surprised. I was thinking that Djordjevic wasn't even on the bench, especially looking how many strikers we had available. I thought that Djordjevic or Rossi should be on the squad today.
Yeah, perhaps. I expect Inzaghi would have been happy with the options he had, I suppose. But mentioning Caicedo there, I think I had a look at him earlier this week. I started looking at a few. Obviously, YouTube clips make anyone look brilliant, but just to get an idea of what kind of player he is, I suppose. And obviously his goal-scoring record isn't particularly impressive, but I will be interested to see him. I'm assuming he's going to start in some of the Europa League group games, for example. And he's very much a penalty box striker, and he was presented to the media earlier this week and was asked about his role, and that's more or less what he said, that he likes to play in the area and he gets on the end of chances. And that's a bit different from Immobile. Immobile is quite an all-round player and often drops quite deep and makes runs and so on, but he's quite an all-round striker, whereas Caicedo, I think, if he had someone like Anderson on his shoulder and say Maricic and Lukaku, those kind of guys on either side of him, I do wonder if he could actually do quite well. I'm starting to come round to the idea a bit now. I think I was quite down on him when he first signed. That might have been a bit clear from my comments on these podcasts. But I think there's a chance he will do a job in those games against lower opposition. I thought it was a bit of panic signing first, but the more I think about it, the more I think there's a good chance he'll actually suit this system and the players around him in a more attacking style. If he has a creative player right behind him and are more attacking wing-backs on either side, you can see him getting on the end of some of these chances. So it'll be interesting as the season goes on to get an idea. But then again, if he does come in and he's absolutely hopeless and then we're placing lots of pressure on Palombi's shoulders.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a little bit like Murcia. I think Inzaghi trusts him a lot. That's why, for example, Djordjevic wasn't called for this match. But I fear, like Murcia last year, Murcia didn't play a lot of match because he had to learn. And a couple of matches, like, for example, against Napoli, he didn't play very well. But he was growing. So I think that still, maybe Palombi has 1 year of Serie B on his back. So he's not at that point. But still, I think he needs to give time to improve to reach his higher level. So I think we need Lazio need another striker before the start of the season. The problem is the season officially starts today, but next Sunday there's the first Serie A match, and I don't know if you were thinking about that, but after tonight with Rado that had problems, Lucas Leiva that had to come out, Lulic that was tired, Immobile that was destroyed. What do you think about next match? Would Simone Inzaghi do a turnover and make the other play, or would you try to replicate the same team of tonight?
I think he'll. I don't see any situation where there'll be a kind of replacement team. I think for the first league game of the season, especially if it's at home against his team you should be beating, you really want to get out there and make a statement. So I don't expect there to be too many changes. Yes, Immobile did look tired at the end of the game, but then again, Immobile played a hell of a lot of games last season. Looked tired at the end of a lot of those as well. And I think we'll have to see. We'll have to get the kind of medical reports and so on later this week to see what the situation actually is. But I don't expect there to be too much of a turnover in the team, just because, especially looking at our fixture list, I think it's going to be very important for this team to get results in their first couple of matches, and Inzaghi's going to know that, especially at home to Spal. You know, there's no point in winning a Supercoppa against a team like Juventus and then a week later losing a home match against Spal. It's going to completely defeat any sort of optimism or enthusiasm around the club. So
I'm not saying that they have to lose against Spal. I'm just saying that there could be some turnover. So, Lukaku could start.
But I think I expect him to put out the strongest team he has available is what I'm basically trying to say. I think if Felipe Anderson presumably should be fully fit by then, Ciro Immobile I would expect to start. Whether he finishes the game, maybe not, but it depends. I think if you put your strongest team out from the start against a team like Spal, you might have the game won by half time. It might be 2-3-0. I mean, I'm fingers crossed and everything, but a team like Lazio should be aiming to score goals early on. If they can start the game next Sunday with the same intensity they played at for the first half of tonight, or replicate even a fraction of that intensity, then they should completely overrun a team like that. So I think the best possible scenario for us is to have the strongest team possible out, get a good lead early on, and then perhaps be able to take off some of the players who are a bit, needing the rest a bit more.
And I think one thing very important is, to have the confidence growing. After this match, I think the level of confidence very high. It wasn't like this last season when Lazio started for various reasons, like Bielsa not coming, etc. I think if you win today, then win against Spal, etc., the confidence of the team will be very high, and this will help the team performing better and better. So, of course, it's very important starting well, and that's why it would be good to play. But I think, again, if you don't think about the strikers where we are counted, we have good option everywhere.
Yeah, I should mention at this point as well that our listeners have proven us to be fools this week, actually, because we put out a poll asking for people's predictions for this game, because Vittorio, you said that you thought Juventus would win. I said Lazio only in extra time. and 48% of our listeners said that Lazio would win in normal time, and they were completely right. So, goes to show we know nothing. We should probably hand over the show to them instead. So, yeah, maybe next time we'll avoid the predictions.
Can we say that Lazio Lounge is unbeaten?
Yeah, 100% record.
Come on. Even in the Supercoppa, we won.
Well, it's one match, one trophy, so it's quite a good ratio for the time being.
Well, I was counting even the friendlies.
Well, yeah, that's true. But the last two matches, we both won trophies. I mean, the Costa del Sol trophy was the biggest trophy I've ever seen in my life. So
yeah, absolutely.
the Lazio Lounge is marking a glorious new era of for the club.
Yeah, absolutely. They should pay us.
They really should. The more we say that, the more likely it's going to happen, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, I believe it. Anyway, we didn't talk about Spal, but I think time is over, right?
We'll have plenty of time to talk about Spal next week, I expect.
Yeah, let's celebrate the victory today.
Absolutely. I hope you're also drinking whiskey on your end.
No, I have to prepare the podcast.
A true professional.
Yeah, I have to be sober. You can drink for me.
Okay. Well, now that I've got your permission, I think I will.
Okay, good to know. Okay, I think we can wrap it up with the Queens. We are the champions. Guys, remember, you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, on YouTube, on Spreaker. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook. Thank you again, everybody. Thanks, Alazai. Have a good night, and celebrate even for me.
Will do. See you next week.
Bye.